From the National Newsroom of the Canadian Press, I'm John Kennedy. U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris has urged for unity after a concession speech following her defeat to President-elect Donald Trump. She told supporters gathered at Howard University that while they lost this time around, the battle will continue.
While I concede this election, I do not concede the fight that fueled this campaign.
Harris delivered her remarks at her alma mater and one of the country's most prominently historically black schools, the same spot where she hoped to give a victory speech. Donald Trump's election victory in the U.S. means Canada needs to reaffirm its status as a friend to the USA. Trump has repeatedly suggested that his U.S. administration would not defend NATO members who don't meet defense spending targets, a target that Canada plans to meet by 2032. Trump's former ambassador to Canada, Kelly Craft, says her old boss will expect Ottawa to speed up its timeline to reach the amount once he's officially back in office. Federal Defense Minister Bill Blair says Canada made a commitment to NATO and gave no indication that Canada would speed up the spending. As a port lockout shuts down West Coast sea shipping, British Columbia's port employers say they need to reassess their position on a current offer to more than 700 unionized workers. The BC Maritime Employers Association says there's been no engagement with the International Longshore and Warehouse Union or federal mediators since the lockout began this week. The association previously stated their current offer was their final offer, but the position could change as the shutdown continues. It's unclear what the employers are considering, whether that's a withdrawal of the offer or changes to the terms. Toronto police have laid 176 charges against two men in relation to a multi-million-dollar vehicle theft investigation. Police allege the suspects acquired and sold stolen vehicles to unsuspecting customers while working at a Toronto dealership, using their position as auto salespeople to their advantage. Investigators say they've linked the men to 22 fraudulent vehicle sales with an approximate value of $2.1 million. Police say the charges follow the launch of Project Warden in August. The Bank of Canada Senior Deputy Governor Carolyn Rogers is warning against adjusting mortgage rules to try and make the prospect of home ownership more affordable.
Rogers says improving housing affordability ultimately requires a balance between supply and demand, which takes time. In a speech, she said relying too much on measures that reduce monthly mortgage payments could hurt households financially in the long term. Ottawa is set to allow 30-year mortgage amortizations for first-time buyers and buyers of new builds. Rogers says while a 30-year mortgage reduces monthly payments on the average loan by about $200, borrowers will end up paying an additional $50,000 in interest over the duration of the loan. Michelle Zedekian, The Canadian Press, Toronto.
This is The Canadian Press. In sports, Oilers captain Connor McDavid is set to return to the ice when Edmonton welcomes the Vegas Golden Knights. McDavid was initially expected to be out 2 of 3 weeks when he sustained an ankle injury in a game against Columbus on October 28th. Instead, he says he's good to go after just 9 days on the shelf. The Toronto Raptors continue a 5-game road trip when they visit the Sacramento Kings in NBA action. Toronto opened the road swing with a 121-119 loss at Denver on Monday. Raptors sophomore Grady Dick averaged more than 27 points over his last 4 games. San Diego manager Mike Shildt says the Padres have agreed to a 2-year contract extension through to 2027. Shildt was hired in November 2023 and gave a 2-year deal. San Diego went 93-69 this season, finishing second in the National League West, 5 games behind the LA Dodgers. From the Canadian Press, I'm John Kennedy.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to follow and subscribe. For more of today's top stories, visit thecanadianpressnews.ca.